Welcome to Let's Get Fresh, the podcast for those passionate about growing their business through the power of connection. At Fresh, we've thrown out the rule book on networking as you may know it, and we've written our own. Think more connections, less blah, and a whole lot of ooh la la. Get ready to explore all things networking and business under the guise of fun, as world-class guests and relatable conversations collide, resulting in education, inspiration, and growth for you. G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Let's Get Fresh podcast. I'm your host Tiffany Cook, and as always, I am excited to be bringing you conversations with some of the most brilliant minds across Australia and the world, talking all things business, networking, relationships, human stuff, all things that make us better people creating better businesses. Today I'm speaking to Dan Monheit, and he is the co-founder of Hard Hat, which is one of Australia's foremost creative agencies built around behavioural science. So we have an incredible chat about that today. He is on a mission to help more business leaders, marketers and brands understand why people do the things they do so that we can use that when it comes to business, sales, marketing and building brands. Brilliant conversation. You are going to love it. Buckle up and I hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget, if you do, share it with everybody. Hey, Darren Kelp from Travel Managers Australia is excited to be sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Fresh. Darren and his team make dreams come true 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're a mobile travel agent who are your one-stop shop for all of your personal and company travel needs. They specialise in international corporate travel, cruises, tours and package holidays throughout Asia, United States, Canada and Europe. With over 21 years of experience in travel, their clients feel safe and at ease knowing that all aspects of their travel are personally managed, which is so important right now with all of the disruption around the world. Remember, without a personal travel manager, you're on your own. So check out Darren. His details are in the show notes to this show and reach out to him today. Dan Monheit, welcome to the Let's Get Fresh podcast.
Hey Tiff, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Good. I'm feeling fresh as I was instructed to. I was made for this gig.
Look at you. Hey, everyone. I didn't even tell him to say that. I didn't even tell him. He's born fresh, ready for this. It's good to chat to you. I'm very excited. I've spoken to you previously and you blew my mind about, I was just like, well, this is a guy that I want to have a bit of a business and networking and branding conversation with because, yeah, you were great. You've done some great stuff.
Thank you. That was fun, but I think that was just a warm-up act. I saved all my really good material for this interview, so let's do it.
I love it. That's what we want. Hey, now you're a behavioural scientist first and foremost, correct? Or what came first, business or behavioural science?
So, I mean, I don't know exactly what the qualifications for an official behavioural scientist are, but I seem to get away with behavioural science enthusiast, behavioural science expert and other such things. So I don't have a science degree, but I've spent the last almost 20 years running a business and a creative agency all built around behaviour and building a really deep understanding of the research out of behavioural science. So as far as what came first, I'll try and do this in not too roundabout a way. My initial response is that business came first, right? We started off 17 years ago, my business partner Justin and I setting up a creative agency, not really knowing what a creative agency was. We were pretty much both straight out of high school. Out of university. I had a job that I'd had for just under 6 months, which I absolutely hated. He couldn't get a job. So we just decided to start our own agency. And along the way, both of us just sort of followed our curiosity. And, at some point I stumbled across this world of behavioral science. And over the last 10 years or so, I've just fallen deeply and hopelessly down the rabbit hole with that. However, I spend a lot of time presenting on this stuff and teaching people about it. And one of the most amazing bits of feedback I get about behavioral science is people, senior marketers especially, say to me, you reminded me why I got into marketing in the first place. Right? I got into marketing because I wanted to be able to influence choices that people make and influence behaviors. And as people progress in their careers, they often end up spending more time with procurement and spreadsheets and finance and other things, and less time actually thinking about why people do the things they do. So kind of business came first, but I think business came first because I was really interested in the way people choose things and how brands work. And so, I don't know, mate, let's just say that they started at the same time.
How fortunate is that to just roll out of school, start something and land where you've landed now with the same interest in the same industry and have just gotten it right. And I'm sure you're going to tell me that you got a lot of stuff wrong.
Oh, we got the whole thing right. We got the whole thing right.
The unicorn has landed.
Yeah. I mean, look, we were really not very strategic when we started. We've ended up being really good business partners, starting off in an industry that we're still pretty much in, doing work that is like you can draw the lineage back to, between what we do now and what we did then. But most of that is good luck and trial and error, and saying yes to a lot of stuff really early on. I think in the early days, especially when it was just two of us and then four of us and then six of us, we would be described now as a 5A business, 5A agency. And that is, we would do anything for anyone, anytime, anywhere, for any price. We would literally just do it because we didn't know anything. So everything seemed like a great opportunity. And while it is shameful and embarrassing to look back at some of the things that we did and what we charged for things and how we ever thought we were going to pull some of these ridiculous things off, it did give us enough context to then work out, well, which of these are we good at? Which of these do we enjoy? Which of these can we make money off? Which of these do people actually value? And slowly then over the years sort of build an offering and a proposition around those elements.
I've got one question that just jumped into my mind. What do you think the ratio of maybe, I guess, importance or focus is in the relationship between you and a business partner and I guess the relationship of just the business and the growth and the strategy? Like what, as things, like relationships are difficult at times, like you got two different people, two different understandings, two different dynamics. And then, it's like any relationship's hard, but you take that and then you throw yourselves both into this unknown world of business. What did you have a bit of an awareness on that?
We were blissfully unaware, I think. And so when I say we were really lucky, we've ended up with really different roles and responsibilities within the business, which that is the recommendation. If you go into business with somebody who's got the same skill set as you, one of you is not required. Yes. So that was not a big strategic decision at the start. We didn't both make a list of everybody we knew and then rank them and then decide, oh, hey, you came top of my list and I came top. We were just lucky like that. But we've also been really cognizant that the relationship and the partnership changes as the business changes. And so one of the challenges early on was that we would literally do everything together. We would go to every meeting together and, we would basically be on top of each other. And as the business grows and the clients come in and the staff come in, you fast forward a number of years and then the problem is we don't see each other at all. And so, we need to find time to connect and we're so divided on that area of expertise that you have to be really deliberate about reconnecting and keeping each other up to date with what you're doing. So they both take a lot of focus. And obviously there's things that come up. You have like little mini crises that, all on relationship or all on business or all on a client or all on a staff member. But yeah, they're both moving beasts, I think is the safest answer.
What was the first hard lesson?
First hard lesson. Take a deposit. The first piece of work we ever did. The first piece of work we ever did was this really interesting, he was a diamond guy from New York. He talked a massive game. He really wanted us to do his logo and his business cards and his branding, which we did. I think the quote was $120 for us to do all of that for him. And we didn't take a deposit and he disappeared shortly after we gave him the files. So that was good. That was a very good, cheap lesson in the scheme of things, probably a month in. Hey, at $120, that could have been like probably $200 by now if we got it. Still stings.
Oh yeah. Okay, tell me what you've learned, what you're good at, what your business is good at. Talk to me about the branding and the human behaviour and the science stuff that you've learned.
Cool. So maybe I'll just sort of start with what we do as a business. A bit of a quick profile of the business to give people a bit of context, and then we can get into some of the more interesting stuff. Yeah. So as a business, we're now 17 years in. We're 50 people. We are, I guess, what you would loosely call a creative agency. And the work that we produce is usually for marketers. So most of our clients are CMO type people, and it falls into one of two big categories. One category is what we call brand experience things. So doing strategy and as a result of that strategy, producing ads, brand experiences, the ads that end up on TV and outdoor and radio and print and social media and all those sorts of places. The other half of what we do is very much in the CX or the customer experience space. So that's working with clients to design or improve their online experiences that they have with clients. So, if you think about your telco or your energy company or the airport or any of these places where you go and need to find information, to create accounts, to pay bills, that's either going to be a really good experience or a really terrible one. And so again, we work with clients to make that not only a wonderful experience, but something that lives and breathes their brand as well. So if you're one of our big clients is Simply Any. Their promise is around simplicity. So it's one thing to do that with the brand messaging, to make an ad that tells people you're simple. But when somebody actually turns up and reaches out and touches the brand on the website, on the help and support center, tries to pay a bill, is it actually simple? And that's sort of what we're charged with. So it's good fun.
I bet TPG's not your client.
No, they're not. Should they give us a call?
They 100%. Hey, TPG, if you're listening, give Dan a buzz. I actually almost hear in my mind, remember that old sound of a modem? Like, ba-ding, ba-ding?
Yeah.
I actually kind of hear that when I go to their website to look at account stuff. That's how, good talk. So give them a buzz. Give them a buzz.
Hopefully they weren't about to come on as your next big sponsor.
Well, they will. They'll be able to. They'll be proud to once I hook them up with you and they're all sorted.
Definitely.
All right, guys. We just had a little bit of a sound glitch, so it's going to be a little bit different tone to Dan's voice, but we're back on track now.
Yeah. I've got the voice modulator on now, so hopefully it's still me. I promise. So that's the sort of work that we do as an agency. And then I guess the second part of your question is where does the behavioural science stuff fit in?
Yeah.
So as a guy that didn't really work in an agency before starting one, I've always been a little bit of an outsider. And, in my early years, when we were one of multiple agencies that a client might be working with, I found a lot of things in the industry not sitting particularly well with me. Lots of assumptions and lots of hindsight strategy and lots of people very, very good at telling stories, but there wasn't really a lot of research or data or methodology that really kind of proved a lot of the strategies that get put forward. And so this always sort of puzzled me a little bit. And then I sort of stumbled across this world of behavioral science, which is a 70-year-old field of research that basically looks at why people do the things that they do, especially the irrational things that they do. And at the core of behavioral science, or behavioral economics as it's also known, is this sort of two-armed bear hug embrace of the idea that we are nowhere near the rational, logical, pragmatic decision makers that we all think we are. Mm-hmm. And actually most of our decisions are based on emotion and biases and the context within which we make those decisions. Mm. And what I sort of realized is there is this ocean of evidence based on thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed research studies that show why people do the things that they do. It seems odd to me that nobody is using these in an industry that is all about getting people to do different things. So what we do as an agency is we apply, insights and understanding from the 70 years worth of research into the recommendations and strategies that we put forward to our client. So I don't know if we want to dive into something a little bit more less abstract, as far as what some of these biases and things are and how we might use them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or if I'm just indulging myself because I love this stuff. And
I am fascinated by it. So hit me up.
All right.
I might learn a thing or two, Dan.
Hopefully. So one of the key findings in the world of behavioral science are these things called heuristics. Yep. Which refer to common, consistent, predictable sort of wrinkles in our decision-making that cause us to do things that if you were an alien looking down at humans and observing our behavior, there are many things we do that you say, that just makes no sense at all. So why are there 30 people standing outside a full restaurant while an empty restaurant across the street waits for people to cross over and go there?
Yes.
Or why do people, go to gym and smash themselves in the morning and then treat themselves with a burger and fries for lunch, Why do people live in smaller and smaller houses but still make room for a drawer filled entirely with old iPhone boxes that they have no intention of using but for some reason can't bear to throw out, right?
Have you been looking in my spare room?
I have been, and that was unfortunately the most interesting thing that I found. So, there are all these weird quirks, right? And there are biases or heuristics that explain all of these. And once you understand what they are and how they work, then you can start building brands and products and campaigns and services around them. And I almost think about these biases or these heuristics as the cheat codes for the game of sales, right? You can do really interesting things with them.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, as an example, one of these is something called the effort bias, right? So the effort bias refers to our tendency to assume that the more effort that has gone into something, the more valuable the thing that comes out of it is, right? So the more effort that goes in, more value comes out. And at a societal level, like we do love effort. We praise effort. Effort is undeniably romanticized. We tell our kids the outcome doesn't matter as long as you put the effort in. That's all I care about. And so, while it is sometimes true that more effort going in equals better outcome coming out, sometimes you just have to put more effort in because you kind of suck at what you're doing. Right? Like if I was going to make you a shirt or a table, it would be a lot of effort and the outcome would not be very good.
Yes.
However, we are not really here to rewire people's brains. We're here to understand how they're already wired and then to tailor our messaging around it. So if we know that people ascribe more value to things when they think that more effort has gone into them, then one of the questions I'm often asking clients is how do we surface and celebrate some of the effort that's going on behind the scenes? And if you look at where this turns up in the world, you see things like up until 20 years ago, if you built a hot restaurant in any city in the world, where would you put the kitchen? Right? You put it out the back, completely obstructed from view with a tiny little window for people to pass the food out of, right? If you look at a hot restaurant in any city in the world right now, built in the last 20 years, where's the kitchen? Like it's in the middle of the restaurant. And where are the best seats? Sitting around the kitchen, right? Because people want to see the effort. And when you see the effort going in, when you see the way the chef slices the sashimi or, drizzles the sauce on top, you can't help but appreciate the extra work that's gone in, and the food tastes better. The atmosphere is rated as better. The overall experience is rated better because we see the effort going in.
Oh, do you know what this rings true with?
What's that?
Speakers.
Yeah.
Well, you think about, often you think about speakers and what some speakers are paid and you're like, what the hell? How can that person be? Like, it's the whole lifetime of insights and the conversations that have led to the ability to hit the nail on the head when they communicate with people. So A, the learning it, and B, the fumbling around for a bunch of years, figuring out how to get a message to land.
Exactly. And we're told so often, to sort of be like ducks, to completely obscure, and don't show people the effort. Ducks smooth on top and legs furiously paddling underwater. And, the takeaway of something like effort bias is not to make everything look hard and painful and difficult, but it is to find ways to, surface and celebrate some of the things that are happening behind the scenes, because if it's not visible, it can't be valuable. You can't expect people to ascribe value to something that they didn't know was happening.
Ooh, I like that.
And so if I think about, a more COVID-related example, we've all been doing a lot of online shopping. Why do you get so many notifications about your package and where it is and where it's been, and that it's been moved from the left side of the warehouse to the right side of the warehouse, and now it's moved from the right side of the warehouse onto a truck, and now it's moved from the truck to the airport? It doesn't make the package get to you any quicker, but it does show us how bloody hard it is to get a pair of crew socks from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Paran, Victoria, right? How much effort goes into that, which I can't help but ascribe more value to the service I'm getting. And if it doesn't turn up exactly in the 2-hour window that I've been promised, maybe I'll be a little bit more forgiving because I've seen the effort that goes in behind the scenes. So it is completely irrational, but it is true for most of us. And it is a thing that we can use in our businesses, products, services, and brands.
Are there any of these heuristics that apply in thinking about a networking space where we're all getting together, where we're looking to become referral partners, we're looking to build business-to-business relationships? Is there anything that springs to mind off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's there's two straight off the top of my head. One is like very direct, right? And the other is a little bit more, overarching. The one that's very direct, you guys can look this up. There's something called the Benjamin Franklin effect, right? So this is a bias that basically looks at the idea that if you want somebody to like you more, right, the intuitive thing to do, the rational, logical thing to do would be to do a favor for that person. However, what the research shows us is that if you actually ask the other person to do a small favor for you, right, they will often end up liking you more because something in their brain says, well, I would only do a favor for somebody that I like. Oh. And this person just asked me to do them a small favor. So I kind of must like them, right? Now, it can't be any favor. You can't ask them, it's that person you've never met, to help you move house next weekend. But if you ask somebody a small favor that also reflects their expertise, right, there is a really good chance that they are going to end up liking you more than if you just asked if you could do something nice for them.
Isn't that fascinating?
So that is the Benjamin Franklin. I think maybe that's why you keep asking me to come on your show. I'm like, oh, I love this chick.
I just want you to like me, Dan.
It's awesome. Yeah. So that's sort of a very specific one. And so you're asking somebody to do you a favor, especially when that favor leans on their area of expertise, can be a really nice way to build likability. Something else that's a bit broader and comes more from a brand space is something called the mere exposure effect. And the mere exposure effect refers to our tendency to like something more simply because it is more familiar to us. Right. So, from an evolutionary perspective, this makes a lot of sense that, new things are scary. And so when we see the same thing over and over again, if it hasn't attacked us the last 50 times, it's probably not going to attack us the first 51 times. And also, if we've seen it 50 times before, it's very easy for our brain to work out what this thing is, right? So our brain likes things that are easy to understand and that are considered safe. And just turning up over and over and over and over again is a really good way to build familiarity and likability. So in a brand perspective, this is why we talk to clients a lot about making sure that your brand codes, right? Brand codes are the very distinctive assets that signal this is your brand. So it could be a color, it could be a shape, it could be a sound. So when I say Coca-Cola to you, their brand codes, I'm sure you would imagine, are red and the shape of the bottle and the Coca-Cola word and the cursive script. It's really important for brands to have their brand codes front and center in the first 2 seconds of an ad on social media, prominent on any billboard or print ad that they do. Because even if people don't watch the ad, even if they don't take in the message from the ad, the mere familiarity of the brand builds likability. And so from a networking perspective, I'm not saying to be a stalker and to just turn up absolutely everywhere, but it takes time. But turning up consistently over and over and over again is a really good way to build comfort and to build familiarity and to therefore build preference.
I'm loving this. I'm loving it so much. What was I thinking? I was thinking about, so you said something about familiarity, and I thought about, so each week we meet every 2 weeks in business, small groups of us. The members meet every week, and we have visitors as well. And a part of the meeting is just standing up for a minute and introducing, you got 60 seconds to make a compelling introduction of, hey, my name's Tiff, my business is Roll with the Punches podcast, I blah, blah, blah. And this is, so that people know who I am and know who that out there in their world I would love to be connected with. So it's, it's your 1 minute that happens every week. And then over time we get to do 10-minute presentations where we go in deep. And then on top of that, we obviously meet one-on-one in our own time and build our actual relationships. So I'm thinking about that. And my question to you is when we're standing up and we're giving that pitch, is there a recommendation on sticking to the same pitch or talking about a subtle variety of stuff? Like, how would you structure that? What is your recommendation?
So I would say it depends on the stage of the business that you're at. So I've definitely lived on both sides of this. When we were early on and still trying to find out what value we were going to add to the world, I would change my introduction and change my pitch every time I met somebody. sometimes by a little bit, sometimes by a lot, just to try it and see how it landed, And if I describe us as an advertising agency versus a creative agency versus a CX agency versus a consultancy, they're all kind of correct, but I feel different saying each of them, and people respond differently when I say each of them. So I spent a long time testing and learning what I like to say, where I feel comfortable, what gets me the introductions and the responses that I like. And then the downside of that was early on, I think a lot of people met me and met my business partner and really liked us, but didn't know what work to give us. So we'd go and have all these wonderful introductory meetings and we leave and people would be like, I could see them thinking, oh, nice guys. Don't know what I do with them, but I'm sure they're great, But that was an important path for us to cross because, again, having not come out of the industry, we didn't really have enough context to make an informed decision on what we should be doing. So we sort of had to try everything and say everything and have a crack at everything until we worked it out.
So interesting. Sorry, can I interrupt with a story?
Please.
We got a new member last week and I met with him and I learned about his story and his business and everything. And I was like, oh, I really like what I'm hearing about what this business does and it sounds really unique and I'm not familiar with it. And I was struggling to really wrap my mind around, but who do I send and what do people want and how do they get to you? Because it was just kind of so different to me.
Yeah.
And so it was, what was great is, the ability to build that relationship and go, all right, likability, bang, love what you're doing, see value in what you're doing, but still don't really understand the mechanics of it. And then I was really comfortable to say, all right, you need to break this down. Like, I don't know how to identify, like, what would I hear someone say in order to go, oh, you need to see this guy? Because right now there's part of what you do that I love, but really don't really know.
Yeah. It took me a really, really long time to get comfortable with an intro. I'd say it took the better part of 15 years to get really comfortable with an intro. And so, which I'll tell you about in a sec, but to answer the second half of the question, so I started broad and just trying everything. But once I've got the thing that, yes, that is asked, that is getting the responses that I want, that is attracting the types of interest and new business opportunities that I want, then that's what I stick with. And that's what everybody knows we do. And I might change it 5% here and there just to keep it fresh, keep myself on my toes, right?
Yeah.
But it's now building that mere exposure effect, right? Whenever anybody sees me present, whenever anybody sees me written up in the media or a press release or an interview, I'm going to be talking about behavioral science. If you are interested in adding behavioral science to your marketing, to your brand, to your CX work, we are the agency to call, right? And that is what we're committed to. And so, as far as what is that intro, what is that proposition, I'll see if I can get it right. Because, what I learned was, the formula is to be able to say we are this type of business who achieves this kind of outcome for this kind of client, right? So we are a creative agency that works with challenger brands to find and grow more customers, right? The second sentence is how we do that. What is distinct or interesting about how we do that? So we do that by taking deeper understanding and insights from the world of behavioral science and applying that to the advertising that we create and the experiences that we build.
It's such an important thing to nail because it's so short and succinct. And really, when you end up getting it, it's sometimes I feel like you arrive at it and go, oh, well, that was quite simple. But it takes a lot of thought and analysis, I think, to actually land on it and know that it resonates and it's the right message.
And that is the essence of good strategy. When you present strategy, it should feel obvious at the end because it is. It just wasn't obvious at the start. Otherwise, someone else would have done
it. I love it. All right, talk to me about reputation and building a reputation.
Yes, I think it's a really good segue because it's really hard to build a reputation for lots of things. And one of the problems with being a 5A agency was I also used to say yes to presenting on anything, to writing articles on anything, to contributing on anything, which at the time, it was fun. It was interesting, and this was in the late 2000s. So, 2009 to maybe 2012, 13. And there was a lot of things changing in the media landscape. So if somebody said to me, hey, can you do a presentation on mobile trends? Can you do a presentation on 3D printing? Can you do a presentation on why brands should use social media? Yes. I would say yes to all of it. And I loved it and I enjoyed it. But again, it made us really hard to buy from because we just kind of did a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And so once we doubled down on this built on behavior as a philosophy, challenger brands as the clients that we like to work with, where we get to do our best work, and built on behavior as our philosophy, my world got so much simpler. Because if somebody wanted to interview me, I knew what I'd want to talk about. If somebody wanted us to pitch on something, I knew what angle we'd take on it. Right. And what that has allowed me to do is just to really focus on building, in air quotes, fame. It's all relative, but to build a degree of profile for myself and for the agency by just talking about the same thing over and over and over again. And what I've realized in the last 3 years, when I've really gone hard at this, is that we tend to overestimate the impact of any one thing and tend to underestimate the impact of doing lots and lots and lots of little things and just turning up over and over and over again.
Is there a strategy or a protocol for knowing when and how to niche down? And I'm thinking businesses that are in early stages, until you kind of know your strength, you do a little bit of everything. But especially I'm thinking of solopreneurs, one-man shows, and it's terrifying to start saying no to business. It's terrifying to start having a price point and not bending. But is there a process that can make that easier to know when do I start saying no to some stuff and niching down and having a smaller, suite of products?
It's really hard. And I don't think it's ever solved, because as long as you're good at what you do, people are going to ask you to do other things. So, this is still a thing that I deal with every day, and it's a blessing. Clients asking us to do stuff that we don't really want to do, types of clients calling us that we don't really want to work for, right? The thing that haunts me, there's a really good podcast. It's very, very niche. It's called Two Bobs, and it's specifically for creative agency owners. It's a very niche, but there's thousands of us all over the world. Yeah. The two guys that run it, neither of them are called Bob, strangely, but they're very, very smart guys. And one of them says, a conversation he often has with business owners is, if you get to later in life and you are not as successful as you thought you would have been, do you think it's more likely to be because you didn't get enough opportunities or because you didn't have enough focus? Right? If you're not as successful as you thought you were going to be, is it because you didn't get enough opportunities or because you didn't have enough focus? And I think if you're even half good at what you do in the world we live in today, there is no shortage of opportunities. And the thing that plagues us all is a lack of focus, because as entrepreneurs, we love solving new challenges. And it's kind of scary to think there's all of these doors I could walk through, and behind every door is an exciting new challenge, right? And who would not want to walk through all of these doors? I want to see what's behind them all. And it's a scary thought to go, I'm just going to walk through this one door for the rest of my life. And what we don't realize is that behind that door, there's actually hundreds of other doors that are, similar, related, interesting challenges if we just shut everything else out. And that's a direct paraphrase from Blair Enns, who's one of the hosts of that show. He talks about that a lot. And I think about it often.
Yeah, I love that. I think that what I find really interesting, and I've experienced this with myself in recent times, and I know I'm a candidate for doing it to others, is approaching someone, like you just said, and asking them to do something that's not even in their wheelhouse, but having so much more trust in them than going out and finding an expert.
Yeah. And I mean, the hard thing is sometimes that's a golden opportunity, because it catapults you into a whole world of stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have done.
Yeah. So why do we do that? Why do humans do that? Why do people come to someone and they know, like people have asked me to do things and said, I want you to create and be and do this. And I'm like, oh, I just stumbled my way into doing what I do now. And now you're asking for something that's kind of related to that, but not in my wheelhouse. And they've got the means to go and get the best people in the industry doing it. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. But it's this trust that's built. Why? What is that all about?
Well, maybe you are the best person in this.
Oh, you're probably right.
Let's start.
Right. Nailed it.
Yeah. So I mean, this brings us all the way back to behavioral science and why people do the weird and wonderful and irrational things they do. Like what you're describing is a completely irrational choice. If I'm in business and I've got a budget to go and do something, I should objectively go out and explore all of the options and make a list of pros and cons and, rank them and then pick the thing that is going to give me the best return on my investment. But it's not what we do, right? We err on the side of familiarity. We err on the side of risk aversion, and especially in a personal context, right? We all suffer from something called status quo bias, which is our tendency to want to keep things just the way they are, even if the way they are isn't the best way they could be.
Yes.
Right? So if you think about something as boring as your mortgage, you probably could spend the weekend going and finding a better rate on your mortgage, but it's just hard and painful. And what if it messes up? And so we will just fight to keep things the way they are.
So now that you've been spying in my top drawer as well at my mortgage.
Right? So we love the status quo because as humans, our primary motivation is to stay alive. Yeah. And whatever I'm doing now, I'm alive. So I should probably be really cautious about changing any of it. In a business context, where when you take a chance, the reward is usually personally pretty small, right? So let's say you go and implement a new software system at your company. If you do a really good job of that, you might get a pat on the back, you might get a small pay rise, you might get written up in the newsletter, right? If you mess it up, right? And now your company couldn't send an invoice for 3 weeks because Barry put in a new software system and it was a complete cluster, right? And you lose your job and now you can't pay your mortgage and now you're homeless. And, it's like the risk reward is completely asymmetric. And so in the business context, we're really skewed to avoid change and to just keep things the way they are. And so we default to safer options. And often what we know feels safer than what we don't. And so even if what you're asking somebody to do is take a little bit of a leap and do something that they haven't done before, it feels safer and more familiar because you already know and like and trust the person. And whether the person actually wants to do it or not is and whether they should do it or not is another question. But that's, I think, why we ask.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I always get in trouble for chatting too long on this show. I promised short, sharp sessions and I'm very chatty. And but I want to ask one last question. I want to ask one of the first things you mentioned, I wrote it down, was curiosity, because you followed your curiosity. What is tugging at your curiosity now? What are you trying to figure out next, or where do you want to go next?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I wish I feel like if I had noticed, I would have come back with something really profound on that. At the moment, one of the riddles that I am messing with in my head, I try not to get like too deep down the rabbit hole on my industry. In these two types of work that we do, the brand experience work has the potential to bring fame, right? Because when you do a campaign, you could do a small campaign for a client. You get to do a press release about it. You get to enter it into awards. You get to make a case study video about it. And fame is really important in my industry. Like most clients are trying to get fame for themselves and their brands. So they want to go to agencies that have fame. So fame is really important. And on the brand side, I've just realized I'm really not going to answer your question at all. But anyway, we're too deep now. On the brand side, there's a whole ecosystem for building fame for the work. On the CX side, we're just quietly delivering better designs and better content and better experiences for our clients, which are making or saving them millions and millions of dollars a year. And nobody would ever know about it, right? There's no press release. There's no case study video. There's no awards really. It's just a completely different dynamic. And one of the things that I'm really curious about is that so? Is there really no opportunity to generate fame on the CX side of things, or do I just need to think about it a different way? So it's really not answering your question, but that is what's on my mind.
I do. That actually answers my question. I think that's really, when you figure that out, come back to me.
Well, you'll know because you're going to see an amazing case study video about some design changes to a site that made it work much better. You'll see it on the TPG site after they appoint us. Call me, guys.
Yeah, I can't wait till you sort that out. Hey, thank you so much, Dan, for the chat today. You've been amazing. It's Hard Hat.
That's right. Yep.
All right. Where do we find you guys? Where can we check you out?
Yeah, so hardhat.com.au is a pretty good place. danmonheit.com is also a good place. And, just put us into Google, you'll find some stuff.
Great. And you do a lot of speaking and presenting, and obviously...
Yes, yeah, I love it. It's so nice getting back to do this stuff in 3D as well. It's been a real treat.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for today.
All right, thanks, Tiff. See you next time.
Oh, creativity and branding meets human behaviour and science. I love conversations like I've just had with Dan. That was really fascinating to me. I loved hearing about heuristics and our emotions and biases that drive our decision making. That was really cool. So a couple of my fresh nuggets in this episode were around that. They were around these decisions that we make that seem to defy logic. I liked the idea of the effort bias. And I'm going to have a look at how much effort I put into things, and maybe I can move my metaphoric kitchen to the front of the establishment here at Roll with the Punches HQ. I think, what else did I like? I really loved the idea around, I'm going to test this one, I'm going to go and ask everyone for favours, the building likability by asking for small favours. I think that's so true, because when people ask me for small favours that are in my wheelhouse, I love them. I love them. I love the opportunity to do that favour for them, and I think it's a real relationship building thing. Isn't it funny how sometimes we have to hear a conversation like this to go, oh yeah, that's a thing. I do that thing, and actually realise it. Anyway, I think it's really interesting. I hope you loved that episode. Reach out to Dan if you want to via his website at Hardhat. And like I said, keep coming back. Feel free to reach out to us via the Fresh Networking website. It's in our show notes. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to keep bringing you conversations that help you build your business and build your network and be incredibly successful. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Let's Get Fresh. Don't keep it to yourself. Share the fresh. And of course, subscribe to our podcast so you can keep the fresh goodness coming your way. If we've tantalised your networking taste buds, get along to a fresh event near you. Grab your free guest pass at www.freshnetworking.com.au. Until next time, stay fresh.